Hey guys, welcome back to Hypnovision Studios. I am your host, Nicholas. Today, I'm giving a very special shout out to Ty K99, one of the subscribers who recently commented on one of my videos with a request to go into manifestation, and that is the topic of today's video. If you're new, please smash that subscribe button, drop a comment below, and let me know if you find something interesting. So, with manifestation, whether you know it or not, we all do it every single day. Our imagination is the magic behind it all. It truly is. And I'm going to put a graphic on the screen that says magic perfectly explained in a declassified CIA document. Now, patterning, this is an excerpt out of this document. So it is revolving around patterns in consciousness and manifestation. So this process is called the CIA Gateway process, and it is a declassified document. And I will dive further into the background of it in just a minute after I read this excerpt. So patterning is a technique that involves the use of consciousness to achieve a desired objective in the physical, emotional, or intellectual sphere. It involves concentration on the desired object while in focus, 12-state extension of the individual's perception of the object. I'm going to stop right there. Now, when I see 12-state, I start to question myself. At first, I'm like, what is that? But also, the content that I've made, I have come across the understanding of the 12 cranial nerves. My last video was about semen retention and the nervous system, and I have followed that journey also and have been very publicly open about my journey. So yes, there is some connective aspects about this, because one of the things semen retention taught me was to change your focus and to hone and narrow down your focus into things that really is what drives you, right? So the 12 cranial nerves, if you think about it, there's 12 disciples in the story of Jesus. So you have the 12 disciples, you have Jesus, that makes 13. There are 13 alleged bloodlines. 1 + 3 = 4. That is your fourth house. That is astrological. That is the zodiac sign. That is the Bible. All the stuff is kind of mixed in this pot. So what really is going on here? Well, there's the 12 tribes, right? So here again, the desired object while in a focused 12 state. So let's see what else this document reveals, because we are actually talking about the entire nervous system being in sync, all 12, the state, right? What is imagination? A nation state, nation. So let's see what we can figure out with this CIA document. So the individual's perception of the object into a whole expanded consciousness. So there are parts of our imagination that we manifest from that we do not even realize that we are manifesting from. And what I mean is, if you take the time and sit down and try to figure out, where does the imagination start? Where does it end? You will find yourself with the same perplexity as trying to cram the size and scope of space into your brain. It is literally one of those ever expanding things that is hard for the human mind to really grasp and comprehend. So the whole idea is to expand your consciousness and to illuminate all 12 of the cranial nerves into a simultaneous synchronistic type vibration. And that is the CIA Gateway process. Now, this was released, I think, back in early 2003, maybe. I think that's what it was. So this has been around for some time now. And, of course, there was leaked documents. But there is a lot of validity to this. So let's move on a little bit. This particular methodology is based on the belief that the thought patterns generated by our conscious in a state of expanded awareness create holograms which represent the situation we desire to bring about. In so doing, establish the basis of an actual realization of the goal. Once the thought generated hologram of this sought after object is established in the universe, it becomes an aspect of reality which interacts with the universal holograms to bring about the desired objective, which may or may not be under other circumstances that could occur. So when I see hologram, what I really think that boils down to is the mental image in our imagination. The whole idea of magic, and I've said this in other videos, is the word magic is in our imagination. It is in the actual spelling. And the word nation and the word image is all contained in the word imagination. So yes, in that sense, magic is real. And, it doesn't matter what your belief system is. Doesn't matter what your religious beliefs are. It doesn't matter what your society, what your stance is, poverty, rich, poor, middle class. Your imagination is the creative force of everything. So yes, most people are so caught up in the 9 to 5, in the rat race of life, in the ever seeking of consuming and material gains, that we never really stop and we never really check our own imagination. And for me, the 222, I think it is exactly 222 videos now, has been about the imagination, because one of the things that I've always wanted was someone to share my imagination with without being judged, really, without being shamed, looked down upon because of something that I imagined. Because let's be honest, I didn't think some of this stuff up. I've either witnessed it in the outside world, or yes, it truly indeed came from a curious imagination. And I do believe that that is part of the duality aspect of life, is that there is that good and evil, the light and dark. However, the way that society has been set up is that we demonize anything that is seen as bad, and then we glorify things to an extent that it seems almost unachievable, because we hold on to the past, right? Because we want to take notes. We don't want to forget. We don't want to let go of what somebody done to us, or how we perceive something being done to us. So in that aspect, we are not moving with the duality of life. We are actually staying stuck, not allowing us to achieve those good things that seem to be out of reach, because we are still setting an anchor to our past mistakes and being constantly reminded. Now, when I think about religion in general, I do understand that there is two types of creation. There is what the universe and God created, and then there is what man created himself, what came from man's imagination. So that is when you get into understanding manifestation for your own benefit, not for this person or not for that person. You can have people put a lot of pressure on you to fit into their molds and their patterns. This right here talks about patterning. So if you understand Romans 12:2, do not conform to the patterns of the outside world, yet be renewed by the washing of the mind, that means to clean the slate mentally, to clean out what this calls a mental hologram. It is the mental image in the imagination. In essence, that is like resetting your self-image, right? Because if we know that we can be brainwashed by the constant bombardment of certain things being on the news, certain things being in radio, certain things in our friend circles, that we start to conform and we start to be like those things, we are starting to succumb and we are starting to become those patterns. However, if we can clear the slate mentally in our imagination, we wipe that hologram, the self-image. That's what that is, the self-image. So manifestation in that sense, that is like really the root of it. So this, when it speaks about patterns, one thing that jumps out to my mind is doing a write-off. Do you remember in school, did you ever have to do a write-off where you had to, I will not speak out in class, I will not speak out in class, I will not speak out in class? That is brainwashing. That is also patterns. And if you understand how that works, it is also affirmations, because you can start to take that brainwashing technique and actually use it for good, and actually use it for something that will benefit you, benefit yourself. And if you stop paying too much attention to the outside world and start paying attention to the thoughts that are registering in your mind, the mental images that come up when you think these thoughts. It has been said that the brain is, with the pineal gland, is more of a receiver of thought than it is a generator of thought. That is interesting when you start to looking at manifestation, because everything we seem to learn comes from the outside. Until we start to take the time to be still and know that I am, you can finish this sentence because you know what comes after that. That is God. Be still and know that I am God. Yes, the Father, the mind, which generates the images in our imagination, that is the magic. It is also what animates the body. Like, what processes are happening in your body that you never really have to think about? Like, do you sit there and tell yourself to move that finger to write with the pencil? The things that you just don't never think about, like, I'm going to get up and walk across this room, and I'm thinking about it, but my legs don't move. But when I don't have the thought and I want to go over there and I want to pick up something on the other side of the room, I don't have to think the thoughts to move my legs. They automatically move. Why? Because the body is a pattern recognition machine. The human body, the human mind is a pattern recognition machine. And the more that it can learn the patterns, the more that these patterns become automatic. And I think it's the Kabbalah, all is mind. That would be the mentalism aspect of autotalic, where things become, you become what it is that you desire, right? So a dancer with enough practice becomes the movement. The dancer becomes the song, the music. The dancer becomes one with that. Same thing with acting. The actor becomes one with the character that they are playing, and that's why some actors are so good at it. They have formulated inside of their imagination, and they were able to allow that to flow from the inside outwardly in a very, very seamless flow. And so that is, in one sense, manifestation, but the other part of that is to take action. So we can sit around and have fear for something that we desire, and then we won't take action because the fear is overriding our brain. But if we understand that the nervous system cannot distinguish what is real and what is not real, then you understand the patterning aspect of this is that maybe that fear is just something that is in your imagination. Maybe that fear does not exist at all. And for that reason, you are holding yourself up. You are not taking action because of a perceived fear that is not even real. It's not reality. And that's very interesting. So I'm going to jump over here to a document online that I found just a few minutes ago before I started the camera. And it says, what can the CIA teach us about manifestation? So it's going to give us a really short intro to this. And it's, as a longtime seeker and sometimes finder over the years, I have met with all matter of energy healers, past life readers, and mediums. So that, yes, the CIA was directly involved in a bunch of esoteric stuff. And if you go back to World War II and you look at Nazi Germany, there was a whole lot of that stuff going on. The Nazis were experimenting with a whole lot of stuff. And also, if you understand the symbolism of the flag, I'll try and put a graphic up, but if you follow the origins of it, it is the black sun. Now, what is the black sun? That is something that I really suggest, if you're watching right now, to jot this down on a piece of paper and go look into it, go dive into what the black sun is. Honestly, when you think about the human eyeballs, when you think about light entering into the black hole of the eye, that light is transformed into matter, and then once it enters the conscious of the brain, it is transformed into different chemicals in the body. Not just different chemicals of the body, but is relaying information to us also. And that is a very interesting thing, because the light goes in, turns into matter, and then we also take action, and we are said to be the light of the world. So what is the black sun? That is a very interesting thing. So when it comes to psychics, when it comes to mediums, when it comes to things like tarot cards, when it comes to things like the Bible and telling people they're going to hell, when it comes to the devil, and when it comes to all these religious belief systems, you have to be able to understand all of these things are man-made. It comes from the man's imagination. So you have to follow everything back to the roots of the foundation. So, if everything was created natural law, and it evolved, if it evolved at all, man's thinking certainly has evolved. So in that sense, if the thinking has evolved, so has the imagination, so has the magic, right? And if we understand how the roots work, we can cover up the roots, and we can change the tree. That's how the special effects of Hollywood works, right? The Hollywood of it all. So 20 years ago, the CIA released documents relating to the gateway process, a training technique that also used sound frequencies to stimulate the brain to higher consciousness. Sound frequencies. Now, I spoke a lot about this in previous videos. Cymatics. So cymatics allows us to see sound, and it doesn't matter what sound, it will generate a pattern. And what you need to see the pattern is some type of medium. Now, a medium could be sand that is placed on a plate that is under a speaker that vibrates. The medium, which is the sand, reveals the pattern that the sound vibration makes. This also happens with water. So we know an awful lot about water, and it is a highly spiritual thing when it comes to water. So sound frequencies. Now, this has been going on since the early 60s. This come out of the Cold War. It come out of World War II. So sound frequencies has been around for a very long time. However, if you understand how it can expand consciousness, you also have to realize that it can decrease or shrink consciousness. It can also confine consciousness, because if you get around a bunch of distorted noise, distorted sounds, you can imagine that it would distort the mental image in your imagination. These files were released in 2003. The files, written by Lieutenant Colonel Wayne McDonald, read like a master class in the esoteric. The universe as a holographic projection, alternate dimensions, traveling across space and time. Now, one thing I want to point out right here about dimensions, I've spoke about this before, is the five senses gives us 5 dimensions of understanding. And you also can understand, if you look at blueprints, how a blueprint is flat on a piece of paper, but if you have a good, sharp imagination, you can see the depth of the image that is on the piece of paper. So you can understand that you're looking into a room, even though this is a flat sheet of paper, the shading, the patterns, everything on that image gives it that depth almost as you can reach into it. The gateway process that the CIA aimed to investigate and employ was the brainchild of former radio executive Bob Monroe, who in the 1950s discovered that varying sound frequencies could alter human consciousness. You may have experienced a version of this phenomenon if you've ever been lulled to sleep by acoustic vibrations in a car. Monroe, why do I think Monroe shocks when I hear this? Because of vibrations in the car. That's very interesting. Monroe's self-experimenting led to several out-of-body experiences, and in 1971 he funded the Monroe Institute to further the study of how these frequencies could induce profound states of being. In the late stages of the Cold War, convinced that the Soviets were researching psychic abilities for espionage, the CIA tapped Monroe Institute to explore these methods for themselves. The Institute's programs were always intended for applications purer than war. In another declassified file, they describe the goal of the program in their own words, explaining that their process aims to instruct individuals the art of becoming more conscious of one's particular resources, inner abilities, and most of all, one's inner guidance. The document also outlines several different levels of consciousness that their own audio tapes induce, beginning with what they refer to as a meditative state, conductive healing, psychic abilities, and remote viewing. Now, remote viewing, if you think about it, that is like astral projection, is it not? So remote viewing is imagining another place outside of you and then witnessing it through the imagination. Now, one can argue if this is real or not, but there is tons and tons of research that our own government has done that tends to lead to some sort of proof that some of this stuff is real. The documents outline that there are indeed several different levels of consciousness, but what are the mechanics behind meeting God? The foundation of Monroe's process involves synchronizing the left and right hemispheres of the brain. This is referred to as hemisync. When specific varying tones, also referred to as binaural beats, are listened to through headphones, both brain hemispheres begin to equalize their frequencies. A deep state of calm follows. Now, when I started this video, I was speaking about the document mentioned the 12 state, and I related that back to the 12 cranial nerves, right? So check this out. If we are synchronizing the brain, and you have 12, right? You have left and right, so you have 6 and 6. The nerves come up 6, so you have half and half on each side. So when you synchronize, you are now allowing that energy to flow. We talked about this in semen retention. We talked about the pineal gland. We talked about the pineal gland being the radio receiver of the universe. So in another video, I spoke about prayer as the outgoing signal and meditation being the incoming signal. If you couple this with brain synchronization, I also enjoy writing during these times because I can take a lot of thoughts out of my head and place them on paper and come back to them later. And it also helps me to organize. You could call it thought dumping, really, in a sense, because if you have a lot of things that are cluttered in your mind, a lot of goals, a lot of tasks, it is hard to manifest that way, because you are constantly worrying about, what am I forgetting? What am I, if you can get it on a piece of paper and then start to organize it, you can start to see the steps of how the manifestation is playing out, what needs to happen, what actions need to be taken for the manifestation to happen. And that also requires a bit of visualization to go with that. Going back to the brain synchronization for just a minute, it is said that after a deep state of calm follows, that's when the portals open up, so to speak. In this state, the report tells us it's possible to escape the restrictions of time and space and tap into the intuitive knowledge of the universe. So, wow, escape time and space. So, if you've ever heard that time is an illusion, it truly is when it comes to the imagination, because the imagination doesn't operate on time. The imagination and the subconscious does not, it's not confined to what man's imagination is, right? So when I say that, I mean the physical material world has cycles of life and death, rebirth. But in the imagination, you can live out many lifetimes confined in your own imagination, which escapes time and space. So the more you are able to visualize, the more you are able to equalize your nervous system and synchronize your brain left and right, the more you are becoming imbalanced as an individual person. The documents have been declassified for decades, but it wasn't until the early 2000s that it began to gain traction in the mainstream. One part of the analysis, there's an advanced technique described as patterning. Now, this is what I opened up with the beginning of this video. It explains the focus of 12 state. We can project our thoughts into the universe with the intention that the desired objective is already a matter of established achievement, which is destined to be realized. This is quantum physics. It tells us that subatomic particles behave differently depending on how they observed. Now, I talked about this before. When you start to observe something, it has no choice but to change. Maybe you caught them doing something embarrassing. Maybe they were in the middle of intimate thought or something like that, and the fact that you observed them without them knowing, and then they realized, then they paid attention, they changed. That is what I'm going through right here is what I'm trying to point out. Our perception, thoughts, has the power to influence particles matter. So our thoughts can influence the matter that is in our brain, which is gray matter. Gray matter, gray aliens. That is something that I spoke about before. We have what is called the reptilian part of the brain that's at the lower part of the brain back here. So forgive me for not having the technical words, the stem, I guess you would call it. So the reptilian brain is what that's referred to when we go into fight or flight. We are not thinking in the same patterns. We are thinking in survival mode in fight or flight. Since our consciousness is the source of all reality, our thoughts have the power to influence the development of reality in time and space. If those thoughts can be projected with adequate intensity, a lesson on manifestation straight out of the military. So guys, manifestation is one of those things that if you don't know about it and you come across it and you take it serious, the very fact that you start to ask yourself, what am I manifesting? You might find a period where you have to like sit down and kind of unpack everything. That's kind of what happened to me, because if you understand what you desire desires you, and some of the Neville Goddard teachings, like everyone is you pushed out, that means the reflection coming back to you. There is a difference in reflection and projection. That is when, if you've ever had somebody accuse you of doing something that was just a flat out lie, I mean, just flat out bald-faced lie, that is projection. That is the truest essence of projection. For somebody to make an accusation against you, stating that you did something that was absolutely not true, is a lie. So reflection would work a little bit different. And I've already done a video on others reflect what you whisper to them in silence. And when it comes to whispering in silence, those are the inner conversations that we have inside of our imagination, that inner dialogue. And most people do realize that they have inner thoughts, they have inner dialogue, but that number on a percentage scale is less than half of the population. So you have to understand that a lot of people, they don't even understand the underlying root causes or reasons for their actions. They don't understand why these things, to me, are generational curses in a way, because at least here in America, society, we are raised in a certain way. Now, you may have in a generational curse, you may have money blockages. You may have love blockages. You may have all sorts of different things that are part of your roots. These are the patterns. So if you can identify these patterns, then you can break those patterns and you can change those patterns and you can reset the self-image. And when it comes to self-image, this is where religion comes into this, and you have to throw it all out the window, and you have to understand that your personal relationship to the Creator is one of a kind. That is what comes from the inside. The self-image, if we are created in the image of God, then you understand self-image, right? So if you want to break the generational curses, if it's love, just from my point of view, let's say that love is one of the things. Let's say that, you were conditioned to see love as a certain way in the house, to experience love in a certain way. So that would be like saying I love you, but showing a different action. So likewise, in generational curses, let's say that you grew up not having anything, and so you begin to collect material things. What is a hoarder? What causes a hoarder to hoard so much that they can't let go of stuff, that it overruns and ruins their life? That is something that has psychologically demented the mental image, the self-image inside. So manifestation is always something that is real, like really happening in people's lives. And I'm willing to bet that more times than not, there is, because the distractions, that is the divination, the distractions of those 12 cranial nerves not being synchronized, not being coherent with each other, that is the divided nation. So how can you have the inner talk with the Creator if you are busy arguing with yourself? If you are busy still hurt about something that happened 20 years ago, if you're still busy because you're worried about something that hasn't happened in the future, you can't be present. You can't be manifesting in the present moment, because mentally you are in the past. Mentally, you are in the future. Mentally, you are arguing with this person over here. Mentally, you are worried about these bills over here. Mentally, you are just chopped up into so many pieces that it's hard for you to manifest. It is hard for you to grab reality that is yours, what is real to you, and manifest it, because you are so caught up in the patterns of the outside world. And that is how we get to understand what manifestation is. Man, I confess, manifestation takes imagination, visualization, and it takes being able to sit still. Really, most adults don't ever sit still. I think the running joke is like, the only time I get alone is 5 minutes in the bathroom when I'm taking a dump. Well, number one, you need to get intentional, like get hard intentional on yourself and write it out. Like, be your own best friend, but you also got to be the same person that will kick yourself in the tail, but not beat yourself down over it, but actually kick yourself in the tail, give yourself a pep talk, and start to break those patterns in your own life. And when you start to do that, you start to break your own patterns and start to set your own new patterns, There will be people that will leave your life. There will be things that leave your life, but there will also be new things coming into your life, because it is always going to equal itself back out. And those 12 cranial nerves, the 12 disciples, ooh, man, we have 12 zodiac signs. And I tell people all the time, they identify with their sun sign. And you are not just your sun sign. For example, I have a sun sign in Capricorn. And Capricorn deals with the material world. And one of the things for me was overcoming the need for material things to make me happy. How do I understand how this breaks down in the family tree and going all the way back to being a child? Let's say, for example, that the parent is the type of parent that every time the kid fusses, the parent can't figure out why the kid is fussing, and they give it something. 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 So that creates this pacification through material things. And so this likewise could be seen as like maybe a trust fund baby, right? So the family is loaded. They have material everything. They have lots of money. So the kid has access to everything, and therefore it cannot appreciate. It cannot appreciate those material things because it never had to work for it. All it had to do was whimper and cry, and I need you to stop crying. I need you to stop crying. There's no discipline. There is no, so that is a form of generational curses. So likewise, as you can imagine, when it comes to love, when it comes to finances, careers, there's all sorts of things that go into that. You have society who has, it has set us up with feminism, the whole feminine movement of women being equal to men. Look what it has done to the family system. So let's go back to that 12 cranial nerves, the state of 12 as the CIA calls it. So if you have 12 cranial nerves, you have 12 disciples, and we take Jesus in the depiction of the Last Supper with the 12 disciples. We go back to that 13 bloodline. 1 plus 3 is 4. That is the fourth house. That is in the zodiac wheel of things. That is Cancer. That is also dealing with the matters of the house, the family system. Isn't that something? That's from the zodiac sign. That's from Jesus. That is from the Last Supper. That is about the 13 bloodlines, which that stuff's connected to occult stuff. So yes, esoteric stuff, yes, that stuff is real. So if you don't want people to see things, then you would typically demonize it and tell people not to look. But likewise, when you make something forbidden, that makes it more appealing. So take that with a grain of salt. But when you go back to the family system, that is the patterns that we pass down from generation to generation to generation. So as I was saying a while ago about the feminism stuff, right? So typically the 50s and 60s, right after World War II ended, a family could live off of a single income. And you had the wife or the homemaker that would stay at home, raise the kids. So what difference is there in a single mother that has no man versus a single mother that, well, not single mother, but she's raising the family while the father is gone? So what happens when that generation of men that were raised by mothers that were stay at home, who increasingly over time, our society has become more materialistic, right? So just follow me for just a second. Those kids that grew up while dad was away working grew up in a system that was pointing us towards simps, towards the feminine man. And then it started to push women into, you are just as good or if not equal to man. Therefore, you should be paid the same. You should have all of these certain rights. So what they have done is they have tried to invert the reality of what a masculine and feminine energy is, when in reality, when you split the DNA, when you split the left and the right, you start to understand that through the imagination, you have the assets, the essence of both, because it is passed down in our DNA. If you think about it like this, if you think about what is a mother wound, what is a father wound, what is a man in feminine energy, what is a woman in masculine energy, what is a woman who is acting from a place of a father wound, what is a man acting from a place of a mother wound. Now you can start to see how this breaks down. The family system is also the internal guidance. That is the intuitive voice inside. And when it comes to the male and female aspect of things, we all have it. It's all everything. There's positive and negative. You have to look at it through the lens of electricity, because you have positive, negative, and neutral. And the neutral could be seen like the pineal gland sitting in between the left and the right hemispheres. So no matter what you want, you will get it. That is manifestation unchained, like uncensored, because whether you are knowingly or unknowingly, you are always manifestation. You are always manifesting, and your imagination is always going. You really can't cut it off. The only thing you can do is become aware. So once you become aware, that's when the choice can be made to change it. That is, becoming aware is paying attention to it and taking the emotional currency to break that pattern within your own thought patterns. And guys, I know I've started to ramble on a little bit. For the last couple of days, I've been really thinking about what video topic I'm going to go with. But semen retention, manifestation, imagination, a lot of this stuff really does coexist really well with each other, because it all takes attention, right? You have to pay attention. You ever heard that one before? You're not paying attention, or I need you to pay attention. Well, let's be honest about that statement before I close this video out. What does it take to pay attention? It takes emotional currency to pay attention. It takes discipline to pay attention. So if somebody says, "Can I have your attention?" I'm more than obliged to listen. However, when somebody tries to demand or deceitfully get your attention, there is usually something hidden that comes along with that. There is a hidden contract that's not spoken about. And that is something that comes out of a narcissistic playbook, which I will not be talking about on this channel. But if you do understand the concept of wordplay, then you understand that, at least for me, the term narcissist and nearsighted go hand in hand, because the thought process of the cause and effect of your actions and how manifestations play out requires you to understand the intention behind why you are doing this. And for somebody that is not paying attention to why they are doing what they are doing, they are just acting from their emotions. They are being actually driven by their emotions, and they don't understand their emotions. So it's very chaotic at times. It can be up and down, up and down, up and down, left and right, all over the place. So, manifestation, if you are really, really wanting to be sincere and legit about it, it takes the very first thing you need to do is learn how to be still and meditate, and begin writing. That is one of the major keys to it. Write-offs, for example, like affirmations. But more than that, you really, really need to be able to make yourself feel it, right? In order for it to be achieved, you need to make yourself feel it. There's very few people that have been around me long enough to know this, but I visualize a lot. Sometimes you will see me, for example, like maybe in the backyard, just kind of like gazed off looking at something, and I'm actually calculating a project in my mind in the backyard. And, I'll come back to it. I'll visualize a little bit more. And then once in my mind, I'm satisfied with it, I literally just take action. I just go for it. And those people will tell you that when I commit to something, I am fully committed to it. And come hell or high water, uh, sometimes that is the taking action a little bit too soon and not thinking about all the possible outcomes versus seeing an opportunity to take action now and then seizing that moment and manifesting something from actually taking the action without the hesitation that goes with it. And with that, guys, I will see you down the road.